All right, we'll call this meeting to order. First item of business today is the election of officers. Who's going to handle that? I get to, huh?
You get the call.
All right, chair and vice chair. We'll go with chair first. Nominations from the floor.
Nominate Wade. I'll second that.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? And any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close that and vote. Call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Vice chair. Who is our current vice chair? You are?
Was it Brian? I think
Brian was.
Oh, Brian was. Okay.
No, what was
I don't know if it was Brian or Harley.
Oh,
I don't know.
let's see. Well, let's nominate Harley. He's not here.
Yeah,
let's do that. That's awesome.
It's good to have one from both venues.
And he's not here, so we're okay then. I nominate Harley.
We've got a nominee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we've got 1 and 2. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close nominations and then call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Anyone here for public comment today?
We got one there.
She's already gave me an earful.
She got her public comment.
I need adult supervision. All right, hearing no public comment, we'll move on to the minutes. January 27th.
Move on the minutes. Second.
All right. Motion by Brian and Walt. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial statements. Are we in business yet, Kara?
So regular unpaid claims have a total of $39,572.97. Phase 2 is a total of $66,971.96. And phase 3 has a total of $68,065. And then for claims that were paid prior to the meeting is a total of $11,144.44.
All right. Any questions on those?
I just, Kara, with the new terminal, have we noticed any difference in our utility bills with the newer building?
I would have to go back and look, but I think it's going to take a little bit just
A
because
little longer yet?
yeah, there might be a small difference.
I mean, because in the public meetings before we built the terminal, remember people were saying, and we said, well, with the new building, our utility costs should go down and things like that. So I'm just curious to see if that's happening.
And that's a good question.
If we can look at that sometime. This
kind of history is here. How long has it been? About?
Well, we've been in here a couple of years, so.
Yes, that should give
It
plenty.
was a year in June, so a year and a half we've been here.
Yeah.
Fully,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so let's say in June, we can look back 2 years and just see. Okay. I would move on the financials then.
All right, we've got a motion by
I'll second
Brian,
that.
second by Terry. Thank you. Approve the financials. I don't think we're going to prison, looks like, I hope. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I don't know, engineers report.
I got a few things.
I don't know, Casey, Chelsea, any?
Yeah, I don't know. Steve, do you want to handle the terminal stuff first, or would you like us to go first on the airside work?
I can do the terminal update. Is Bob Kors on the line or no?
I
I am
don't.
on sign up.
Oh, okay.
That
Oh, is he?
sounds great.
Can we do a roll
Good
call?
morning,
Steve,
Bob.
I could probably start out with the terminal update on the PA system.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. And I don't know, is Nathan on the line as well?
I am, yep.
Okay, great.
Can we,
Thanks,
hey
Nathan.
guys, before we start, can we do a roll call, please, to see who's calling in?
Bob Coors?
Nathan Reed.
Sean Baby's there.
Hi, Casey Nowicki with SCH.
Okay.
Elsie Kuzo with SCH.
Most importantly, I see Sean's smiley face. We're good. This is good. No bruises. Yeah. Thank you.
That's, is
Okay,
that
you
everybody?
bet.
So I saw Jimmy else.
All right. All right.
Okay,
well,
so
whoever-
I'll start out. I can start out with the PA system. Since the last meeting, Eric Peterson from Alliance visited the terminal and met with Holly and recorded her doing a boarding call, as well as walking around and for different areas and clapping, so that we could kind of measure the acoustics and see what was actually what we were hearing through the recording. And we met earlier this week about that, and the speakers have been installed at the lower level, and we were unsure at that time if when those lower speakers were installed, the overhead speakers for the fire alarm system were intended to be disconnected. And so we were unsure if they were disconnected or not. We have now confirmed that they are functional, they are operational. So we've got sound coming from the overhead speakers in the ceiling, as well as sound coming from the newly installed speakers closer to the passenger ear level. So our intention with the installation of the lower speakers was to disconnect the overhead speakers, and somehow that got missed. So that is our next course of action, is to disconnect those overhead speakers so that just the lower speakers are functional, and seeing if that makes a difference. Nate, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just kind of time on top of that in the terms of the reason why that might be an issue is that with that sound coming from those additional directions, it just interferes and creates some reverb, and then also some fluttering of the audio. So it may be affecting the intelligibility potentially. So that's why we had intended to disconnect those overhead speakers when we installed those lower at the closer to the ear speakers. So we'll get that disconnected and see if that improves the situation. If not, then we talked about a couple of other routes to go to again improve the overall situation of the PA system in that particular space.
And Nate, can you comment on what happens to, I had a question about this that I thought about later, but what happens to the fire alarm system then if we're not using those overhead speakers?
Again, the speakers, when we added them down low, traditional speaker layout has them on the wall, at 96 inches above finished floor. So with those speakers down low, we're fine, because those speakers should be tied into the fire alarm system, just like the ones overhead. So we'll still have our coverage. We'll just need to make sure that we run through and meet the levels. By code, I have to be 15 decibels above ambient noise, and that's a pretty quiet space, relatively speaking. It's not like you're playing bands and rock music in there, so that's a pretty easy threshold to achieve with those 4 lower speakers and just disconnecting the upper speakers.
Okay.
But there will be a programming piece to take those 4 ceiling speakers out of the fire alarm so that we don't see a trouble alarm once we disconnect them.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So before we move on to the next item, are there any questions on the PA system?
Bob, this is Steve. Could you or Nate comment? Maybe Nate. Laura had previously had questions on the speaker that is inside of her office at the rental kiosk area.
Yeah, I think the intent would be to disconnect that one and or relocate it outside of that office as part of this effort to disconnect the other 4 in the ceilings. Do that at the same time. Again, it's not required in that space, that speaker. It was added there in terms of just making sure that we had good audio coverage within that space for them for an all building page. But I think that based on what I heard and what others have give feedback on, that we have plenty of, she can still hear it even if that speaker's not in there, an overall page and or a fire alarm event.
Okay. Well, the next item on the list is the generator. And that has been fixed. I think the only thing we're waiting on there is the testing protocol from HM Craig. And I did send an email to John Hansen from HM Craig, but I haven't heard back, so follow up with them on that item.
Amen.
I don't know, Steve, have you heard anything back from him?
I have not, but I can't help but wonder if that wasn't somehow presented already by HM Craig back when they had provided a service agreement for consideration. I wonder if there's some information in there. I mean, certainly remember we talked to them about that and, you know, what the protocols ought to be for moving forward and doing annual testing. I'd be curious to go back and find that proposal and see if there's some information within that document that may spell this out.
Yeah, and remind me again, Steve and or Thor, where are we at with that? Did they enter into an agreement for a maintenance contract or no?
Bob?
No, we did not.
Okay.
No, it was just a proposal, but you know, within that, it may have spelled out what their suggestions would be, you know, for service on that generator.
Yeah, I think I remember there was, you know, some level of detail in terms of what they would provide as that service for the testing. There's the NFPA annual testing, monthly runtime tests, those types of things. But yeah, we should follow up and we can relook at that proposal and just confirm if that's in totality what they would expect for that testing regimen.
Okay, so we'll need to follow up on that. Any questions on the generator? Okay, we'll move on to boiler number 2, which was repaired and since the last meeting has been operational and functioning at full capacity. Thor, can you confirm that it is still functioning at full capacity?
Yes, I hate to bring the great news that it is functioning full capacity now for about a month, so it'll probably fail after the meeting. But that was a difficult journey, and hopefully we'll see where we'll go from here. But so far we're in great shape. So it is doing exactly as it's supposed to at this point.
And we had 2 weeks of good cold weather for
Tested.
getting tested too.
Correct.
What thermal solutions? How long will they be monitoring remotely on that?
They're fully linked in too. So we've been because there hasn't been any issues on it recently, Nate. We haven't had any real interaction.
Okay, I passed on the graphics in that past 30 days of information to the commissioning agent Todd Mell, the mechanical engineer in our office, and we were just kind of looking. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that we're kind of tracking and make sure that we, if there is anything that comes up, that and if he has any thoughts or suggestions, I want to make sure I get that to you. So.
Thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving on, the next item is the phase 1 and phase 2 connection. Steve, do you have anything new to report there?
Yeah, I can give a quick update on that, but I'm going to back up on the boiler just a quick second. Nate, yeah, good info. Let us know if, your engineers see anything that they may, want to review closer or look at any of the trending. We did have UL Company send out a 7-day and a 30-day trending report on the boilers. Yes, everything looks great. And Thermal Solutions will continue to closely monitor this probably for another 30 days. And then, they thought they could certainly call in at the next March commission meeting and chat some more, about the boilers, make sure everything is performing as intended, and give any further updates at that point. So just some good info that UL Company helped us look at trending. We forwarded that out to the group, so let us know if you got any questions on that. Looking at the roof connection, we are in process of drafting a letter that Thor can review and sign that will coincide with an FAA permit request to fly a drone over the new terminal building with a thermal camera that could look down and take a look at what that roof connection looks like, see if there's any hot spots coming through the roof. Once we do that, it could take, maybe up to 90 days. I mean, we don't anticipate that's how long it would take, but, in black and white from the FAA standpoint, it could take that long. So hopefully the letter will help express the urgency and the support of what we're trying to accomplish to understand the thermal imaging of that roof system, and take that intel, if you will, and use that to further determine any corrective action that may still be necessary. So more to be followed up on that from our Minneapolis office, and we're working directly with Thor to get that letter drafted and sent in.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, if we have grown, in my own suspicion of maybe some condensation building up during, the cold snap, and now as warm temperatures start to thaw, if you will, a little bit of that condensation, we may start seeing some more dripping. Thor and I have talked, and Jake Haney and Jake Harris will try to keep a closer eye on the customs detention rooms now for the next week or two, and just kind of see if some dripping starts to occur again after the cold snap may have built up some of that frost. So work in progress, but that's the update on that item, Bob.
Okay. Any questions on phase 1 and phase 2 connection?
I just have a question. That thermal imaging, can that be done even in warmer weather, or is it better when it's cold?
Yeah, certainly it's best to do when it's cold.
Okay.
We actually tried just walking on the roof last summer with a thermal camera to see if we could even see it in reverse if it was warmer outside and cooler inside, as we were on top of the roof dealing with the clear story windows. But at that time, I think it was just kind of neutral. We couldn't really see anything. It was a little bit of a misty, rainy day. The outside temps were only about 60 degrees, so we just couldn't really see anything conclusive by standing on the roof with a normal thermal camera. So yeah, it is our goal to try to see it in the cooler climate. If we can be below freezing, preferably, would be wonderful. So hopefully, if we can get after it in the next couple of weeks to a month, if we get FAA clearance.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. The next item on the list is the jet bridge, which they are waiting until April to come and do that fix. So that we'll be able to report on that in April. And the last item I have on the list are the change orders, which we're continuing to work on and submit weekly to the FAA for the phase 2 terminal. That's all I have on my list. Is there anything I'm missing?
Oh, thank you.
You bet. All right, yeah, thank you then.
Reconstruction.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's warming up. We're all happy.
I know. It feels like spring almost. Not get our hopes up yet, though. So I'll do the runway side update. So we have the phase 1 reconstruction of the north end of the runway. Same thing as last month, just waiting on final acceptance this spring. We'll complete some of the punch list items there, get that wrapped up. Any questions on phase 1?
Nope.
All right, moving on to phase 2, we have a change order that we pulled together, and it's for the FAA communication cable items from last summer. We had quite a few meetings with the reimbursable agreement team at the FAA. Because they were not able to come up last summer, we had to come up with some solutions to rerun their cable this summer coming up. So the solutions we came up with were installing an additional 105-foot duct bank under the taxiway Alpha, and then jetting out some existing conduit. And this would just ensure that we have a location to place the cable this summer. So those will be in this change order, which will be for pay application 11. So I don't think we went over the financials. Maybe we did. So consider pay application 11 in the amount of $7,061.96.
We included the finance
Finance report, was it?
Yes.
So we don't
Did
need
we already
that.
approve?
Okay.
We're good on that.
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Checks
Perfect.
in the mail.
We got ahead of you.
I missed that part. So that'll be
That's
for
because
that.
Kyra's on the ball, it's not us.
Yeah. Thank you, Kyra. So then that pay application will be specifically for that change order.
Good.
Along with phase 1, where everything is complete within phase 2, and we'll just be addressing some punch list items in the spring with some final acceptance. As for the weather balloon, again, no work completed this month. There were a couple updates on the lighting. The photocell and the light pole. MnDOT has said no to funding both of those. Bob Brashears is looking into funding the photocell, just the lights on the building. Those will be a cheaper effort. So he's looking at NOAA and the National Weather Service funding those, but we're not really sure where to go with the light pole. That's obviously a little more expensive, and with FAA and MnDOT not providing funding, not really sure where that's going to go. So more to come on that, I think. And one other item was the garage doors. Raylene said the garage doors have not been working very well, but Bob did confirm that that has nothing to do with the construction. They're just old age. So they're looking at doing some funding for that and getting new garage doors for Raylene, but it is a slow process. Same thing as phase 1 and 2. This summer we'll be doing some final cleanup items in the woods, and we should be able to wrap that project up as well. Is there any questions on phase 2 of the weather balloon?
No.
Okay. Phase 3, the work is projected to start on May 24th, so that's going to come up here quick. And we'll hold a second pre-construction meeting in late April, early May before the construction begins. One other item, the airport attorney is looking into this Bill Day property, well, the old Bill Day property temporary easement, but we have created a plan to avoid that private property if necessary, if they are not willing to work with us. And I think that's all my updates, if there's no questions.
Questions? No? Thank you.
All right.
You'll be moving up here again for the summer, huh?
Come May, I'll be there all the time again.
We had you on the voting rolls. You've been here so long, so. All right, funding and grants.
All right, good morning, everyone. I can cover this one. The bonding bill, we've been meeting with MnDOT and Thor and Kyra. We kind of have some recurring meetings that we have set up to work with MnDOT to complete the paperwork to gain access to the bond funds. So those meetings are ongoing. Also related and being discussed at those meetings is the potential for a state companion grant for the 2019 FAA grant. The state, if you remember, did not originally provide a matching grant for this, the 2019 grant, because they had intended, or maybe not intended, but they were thinking that the bonding would come through. So we are working on some conversations. At this point, it doesn't sound like there will be an opportunity to amend to include the phase 2 reimbursement in the bonding to use those retroactively. So we are working with MnDOT to amend the state grant to include the local, or not local, but include the state share for $400,000. But those conversations are still ongoing, and we'll just see where those go. But continuing to advocate for that with MnDOT as part of those conversations. Some new funding as part of the more recent coronavirus relief package that came out. There was funding specifically for airports. The acronym is CRRSAA, and they're pronouncing it CRRSA. So this is the new funding program. I believe that Kyra should have received an email, I think it came from Lindsay Butler, just kind of notifying that this is out there and it's coming. Paperwork's being processed through MnDOT, but INL received $1,006,028 in funding through this grant program. It's pretty similar to CARES, but it's a little bit different. You can't use the funding for development projects, but you can use it for cleaning operations, salaries, and other things related to the coronavirus. So, as well as debt service. So we can continue to kind of help Kyra understand and evaluate where to best use that money. But MnDOT will process the grant paperwork, so no action needed on your part at this time. There'll be kind of the electronic signature process again for this grant once it's distributed. One difference, again, with the CRRSA versus CARES is it does not include 100% funding for this year's grants as CARES did last year. However, there are kind of ongoing conversations both in the House and the Senate for upcoming stimulus funding, and we'll just kind of wait and see where those head. But some of the draft language in both House and Senate does include 100% funding for FAA grants for this federal fiscal year. So we'll just continue to monitor where those conversations go, and we'll share any news as we hear it on potential increases in funding for this fiscal year. Any questions on the funding items?
I have
Go ahead, Karen.
Is there a deadline on that one of when the funds need to be used by? Do you know, Casey?
There is, and I don't have the date right offhand. I can send it to you, Kyra, but I believe it's a ways out.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, one other detail with that CRRSA funding is MnDOT hasn't really stated yet how they will consider that with your M&O grant as far as which gets to be used first. So there may be a little bit of strategy on just how you submit for reimbursement, but Kyra can work with you on that and kind of think through what makes the most sense just to make sure that we're maximizing the funding that you receive both from CRRSA and from your M&O grant. Any other funding questions?
No, pretty quiet.
All right, the 2021 CIP, we are tracking several projects for potential projects for this year. One is an SRE plow acquisition. The FAA has stated they're supportive of this. This is one that has been added here over the last couple months. Chelsea's working on a justification package submittal that'll go into the FAA. For their review, it looks at your existing equipment, its age, as well as what you're eligible for, and kind of makes the case that you're eligible to receive FAA funding for replacement. So we'll get that into the FAA here in the next couple weeks. The other piece is kind of a focus planning study around the building area and also runway 422 rehabilitation design. So it'd be a design only element for that project, and the construction grant would come at a later year. And then tentatively the Arf Truck Replacement. So we're working through kind of similar to the SRE equipment. There's a justification package that goes into the FAA, and we're working to gain FAA support to replace what you have rather than the smaller piece of equipment that you would be eligible for if you were just purchasing, from scratch today. We're trying to make the case that you should replace with a similar size piece of equipment. So working through the justification package with your certification inspector and other staff at the FAA. They've asked for some additional information, and Chelsea's kind of running with pulling that package of information together. So
Just a little bit of additional information.
yeah.
Minor remote.
Yep.
Public
So Chelsea's working on
Everybody
that.
get that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Any questions on the 2021 projects?
It's early in the morning for us.
At this point,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Thor.
When Chelsea and I set up Chelsea, did you receive the email I sent you yesterday about setting up that meeting for, March 5th at 11 a.m.?
Yes.
Zoom meeting?
Yep. I did get your email. I
Did I
haven't
forget to
the
throw
meeting yet.
Casey in that loop? Thank you, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then part two, running back to, I always get forgotten about Casey.
That's all right.
Thank you. And then back to the plow, just so the group understands, it's a replacement of the actual plow on the truck, not a truck and plow. So I don't know if I covered that, but go ahead, please. Thank you.
Yep. So at this point, we're kind of moving forward with all the projects on the list, but we do need to submit the grant application in May. So really here over the next couple months, we'll need to finalize what projects you'd like to move forward with from the list for this fiscal year. So I think our plan between now and your March meeting is to finalize the FAA justification package, both for the SRE plow blade and the Arf truck, and we'll know where they stand on those. And then in March, maybe we'll have a more robust conversation about which projects you might want to move forward with for this fiscal year. Grant applications are due in May, so that's the timeline that we're tracking for those.
That's good. To that point, I see conversations are being held about more stimulus in the House and Senate, and we did get a letter from Senator Klobuchar's staff, and they're in contact with us constantly, and there's something we need, they said, to get a hold of them. So I think that's something we want to look at if that's the course we're going to be taking.
One item for the projects, the potential projects for this year, since we only have a couple months here until the grant applications are due, and they're due a little bit early this year compared to how they have when they've been due in previous years. So everybody's shuffling a little bit to readjust schedules. But for both the runway 422 rehabilitation design and the building area planning study, there is the potential to need an IFE to review consultant services costs. So one item you may wish to consider just to help with the schedule is to consider a motion to give permission to move forward with an IFE for those projects if it is needed ahead of your March meeting. So I don't know if that's something you would be interested in considering, but it would give Kyra the ability to move ahead with an IFE to evaluate consultant fees if it is needed.
Makes sense to me.
Good motion. Absolutely.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second.
A second. Any discussion or questions on that? Thank you, Casey, for leading us here on that one.
Yeah, and then just as a reminder, the projects that we're tracking for fiscal year 2022 are potentially a new snow removal equipment building, a general aviation apron lighting project, the construction element for the runway 422 reconstruction or rehabilitation, and then potentially auto parking rehabilitation. So definitely have quite a bit of time before we make decisions on those projects, but those are some of the potential projects that are out there on your CIP for next year.
Okay, great. We'll go back and call the question here on the motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Sorry, I got ahead of you there.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Keith.
And then upcoming meetings, we'll have another funding meeting with MnDOT on both the bonding and the potential state match for your 2019 grant in March on the 10th. And then our last meeting with them was on February 10th. So we'll kind of continue with those monthly meetings until all the paperwork elements are finalized and I feel like we need those meetings.
All right. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Well, thank you. Easy.
Thank you.
At this point, we gotta go, huh, Carol? You're gonna...
Marketing options, go for it, Thor.
Mark, where are we at?
New business.
How do we get there?
Business, do we?
Don't have the old business.
Boy, he's quick.
I haven't even got to my.
Just like that, see, quick meeting.
Your report's coming later.
Business.
You were
Okay,
sleeping, so
good.
you
Oh,
know.
I chatted with the Brainsy operation, Miss Kramer, and do you like that, Kara? You owe me a cup of coffee. Okay. Art, you jump in here. Tell me what we're doing.
You have all of these.
Okay, these are face masks that were given to us. We have lots of face masks. And the discussion came about of using this as a
Marketing plan.
a marketing plan with the idea of, watch this.
You gotta put something on there.
You got it right there? Thanks, Walter. Here. Notice. See this? Okay.
Tell them what it says.
What did it say? I know what it says, don't I? It says, I flew from International Falls, INL, your gateway airport, et cetera, et cetera. Kyra has done some breakdown of the cost. 150 masks at $325 each, 47. 250 masks, $275. 350 masks at $277. The idea being that we would laughing. It's good. I like that.
I couldn't really hear what you talk like an auctioneer, for God's sake.
and sometimes purposely. Because I have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I'm doing okay.
Let's call this meeting back to order here.
I'll back to committee now. Okay. Kyra, jump in somewhere, would you?
So the face masks would be printed. We have them all. They're just sitting there. Basically, we thought that we would just take them and have them printed with a logo, have them down at the desk when people check in. Who knows if they'll ever use them, but I can probably guess that people would take them as a souvenir of some sort,
Yeah.
So the masks were free, so the charge would only be for the printing of masks.
You're doing great.
Printing fee.
How many?
Yes.
How many did you get?
There's 5,000 masks?
There's a lot of masks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
And
there's a lot.
It's kind of cool. They're made by hands. It kind of looks like an underwear pattern.
Oh, good.
Can you guys see that?
Hey.
Do they have a fly
I thought they brought some around.
Good job. Yeah. Those people up north.
Do they have a fly in the front?
No, it doesn't actually. I looked at
Tiny whitey face mask.
That's it. The piece of paper again.
this piece of paper. There.
And then are you going to package them individually? No, they would just be out there. That's why I said I don't know if they would be used, but they could take them, wash them at home.
It gets their name out there.
Sure, that's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. You start out with 250 of them, I think.
They're going to
Start
put
with?
Facts of the Nation on there?
Yeah.
On the other side.
What do you think, Thor?
Oh, it's a great idea. I better go with that.
You should have some over
Yes.
over there too.
I would agree.
So if we start out with 250 anyway, or do you think we should do more?
You guys,
What's the cost? Does it get a lot cheaper?
It's cheaper the more.
It's cheaper the more you do. You might as well do 500.
Yeah.
You got 5,000.
You got 5,000. Oh my God.
We have a lot of them.
Yeah, they came in on a pallet.
They literally came, I forgot that,
Need a
yes.
motion,
They came on a pallet.
need a motion to approve, what, 500 or whatever you want to do? Does it say
500 sounds, I think they're gonna go like hotcakes. Huh?
I would think.
Yeah.
motion to do 500?
500 sounds good. I'll make that motion.
Second?
I gotta abstain.
We're gonna have a quorum. We're done.
It's my idea, she would just want to run. I'm just kidding.
Well, I guess I can.
I'm
I'll second.
sorry.
Well, we got 3, we still got a quorum, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Now what do we do?
Passes.
It passes.
We can clap, I suppose.
Yeah.
We'll do 500. That's the consensus anyway.
I would
That's your
agree with
consensus also.
That was well done right there.
Whether you abstain or not, it's still your consensus.
Absolutely. That's how it works.
That's how it works up
Just
north.
gotta do it the legal way.
Exactly.
Keep myself.
Anything else? We got a,
What
let's
you
go
got?
to the manager's report.
Oh, good. I'll try to make it brief, which is difficult for me. Thank you. Jumping around real quickly, runway condition. Just can't emphasize enough. Was reminded recently from some pilots, corporate pilots, and a couple of airline captains now that this particular winter, not that it's been really, it's been cold, but nothing out of the extraordinary as far as average temperatures. Runway definitely is degrading, and we've definitely made the right call to do this at the right time. So just fantastic. I'm super happy about that because I lost a certain amount of sleep over a certain amount of years trying to time these projects. So that's really fortunate. Also, airline scheduling. Talked with Holly, a local station manager, and with the airport managers at Hibbing and Brainerd, Minnesota. Delta/SkyWest came out with the new, let's go with the April schedule, and I believe starting April 12 or 13, April 12th until May 1, we'll have only 1 flight per day. It'll be a morning,
This afternoon.
afternoon flight,
Yeah.
and
Get out of here at 3:45.
there you go. And that's interesting, and I'm assuming, I don't know that, but I'm assuming EAS will still be paying them for 2 flights a day. I'm guessing that only, I don't know that. Just kind of an interesting scenario play out. The other interesting thing is that Delta made an announcement recently. It's a phenomenal figure. They're looking at reducing their current flights in and out of the Minneapolis hub by 27%. And to put that into numbers, that's 100 flights per day. That's a phenomenal number. That's a big number. So that's interesting. That's just a reflection of where we are. One of the small town story to weave into this. One of the captains, CRJ captain for SkyWest here, is a very fine young man named Jim McCarthy, and he would be Jim McCarthy's son, Jimbo's boy. He would be Danny McCarthy's nephew. There you go. Okay, yeah. And he comes up and chats a lot, and we discuss things. And he was recently 3 nights ago. He did an overnight in Calgary Airport to just kind of let the group know what's going on. Same thing. Basically, the Calgary Airport, a ghost town. Dozens of airplanes still parked. Huge impact on their economy with the COVID situation. So, just interesting. That's all I have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Thor.
Thank you.
Report from
I might just interject on that. Delta is also holding to leaving the middle seats empty on all its aircraft until the end of April. And I believe they're the only airline, I'm not sure, that's still doing this.
Oh, interesting.
anything else? Kyra, floor is yours.
Employments are in the packets. slow start to the year. I don't have a ton. The TSA lease, that continues to be
Challenge.
we'll go with that. It's got a very large working process with lots of back and forth between us and TSA. Hopefully we can get it done here before June when the new lease is scheduled to start. So that's just a little update there. Fingers crossed.
Credit to Kyra. It's you're being very kind in your description. I can't. She's just been really working very hard at that. Very frustrating. It's 3 letters in the government TSA, I think, similar.
Other than that, that's about it. We did receive the draft bonding agreement, and as we touched before, we're just continuing to work down the line on those steps for that agreement and getting that started. So that's basically all I have.
Thank you, Kyra. Any other business?
I just report that we had a visitor yesterday, Thor. Seemed strange to actually see this. We were getting ready to get the plane out yesterday, and I looked along the building there. Here comes a muskrat walking along the building. He made a loop around the building and headed back to the woods.
Yeah. Just checking things out.
Just checking things out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Going over the inflation shelter.
Yeah, I don't know if
He probably got sick of the 37 below 02. He wanted to get the heck out of here.
Yeah,
He wanted to get on that
right
plane.
in the sun.
Was he wearing a mask?
No, he wasn't wearing a mask.
Okay, any other business? Next meeting then.
Oh, this was a good meeting.
Next meeting.
Is that
What do we got?
when is it, 16th?
The next meeting
What do you got?
would either be the 24th or the 31st is the last Wednesday of the
31st is
month.
the last
So it'd be the-
Wednesday.
Yeah.
What's the preference?
I didn't bring my calendar with me, so whatever you go
Let's
with.
see, March.
24th and 31st makes a difference to me.
Doesn't make any difference to me.
If you don't
SCH, any, is there
make
any,
any difference to you guys with the meeting? 24th or 31st?
24th?
Okay, 24th.
You do 24th?
24th at 8 a.m.?
24th, 8 a.m.